Summer of 79, an assignment is dropped in my lap and I'm forced to finally play a disc by these buffoons, KISS Dynasty. I spin the disc, lo and behold, I instantly perceive them to be a damn sight more on the money than those other fabled half-cocked international superstars, Mark Bolan, Slade, Boz Scaggs, David Cassidy, et al. This is called Puckering Up for KISS in Dynasty. So, nobody listens to everything. This was true even back in Sacred 67, when there couldn't have been more than about 7 major with-it American groups under contract to major American labels. A lot of people decided to ignore, for instance, the Electric Flag. And by the way, I know nothing about the Electric Flag. If you know anything about who that is, put it down in the comments. Today, there's so much bulk, you could easily miss every cut of 80% of the super platinum LPs God hath wrought. I've ignored the entire careers of Genesis and Yes. Don't have a clue what either of these limey aggregations sounds like. Just an abstract exercise in avoidance. KISS, on the other hand, I've steadfastly avoided for reasons far more personal. New Year's Eve of 73, 72, 74, I happened to catch this show at the Academy of Music in New York, headlined by Blue Oyster Cult. Second billed was Iggy Pop. Third was Teenage Lust, David Peel, and the Lower East Side without David Peel. Just to give you an idea of how relevant it was getting down toward the bottom. That's actually pretty interesting if KISS was down even below that. Of course, they were nobody back then, though. Let's see here. Fourth build was this unknown combo from Queens, New York, a band you could only have applauded for their sheer courage in the face of prevailing trends. This foursome had the anachronistic gall to come out amid smoke bombs, wearing hideous face paint. What did they think this was, 1970? Lots of laughs greeted the band we now know as KISS. Time quickly marched way the heck on, and KISS was suddenly bigger, much bigger, than the triad of higher build units put together. Isn't that fascinating? Because here they were whenever he saw them in the early 70s, and just within this would have been like 5 years later, all those bands they played before, including Blue Oyster Cult, they were just way, way bigger. It was incredible, their rise to fame, how fast all this stuff happened. And it's just fascinating thinking about them being this small club band opening with the opening spot with 4 other groups. Just so interesting looking back at this. Let's see here. I couldn't have cared less. I wanted no part of these jokers, live, on vinyl, or otherwise. Somewhat later, my orthodox aesthetic repulsion toward them was reinforced when the rock photog with whom I had been living for a number of years dumped me to marry a rock writer who was the self-professed world's leading authority on the rock group KISS. That's actually pretty funny, having that rubbed in like that. To make matters worse, the photog had a long time objected to the way I kissed. She thought I opened my mouth too wide. Okay, this is a little too much information. It's interesting. Summer of 79, an assignment is dropped in my lap, and I'm forced to finally play a disc by these buffoons, KISS Dynasty. It's safe enough. They're over the hill, a year and a half since the TV documentary I happened to notice in TV Guide. I spin the disc, lo and behold, I instantly perceive them to be a damn sight more on the money than those other fabled half-cocked international superstars, Mark Bolan, Slade, Boz Scaggs, David Cassidy, et al. It's also interesting looking back at this stuff and thinking about these other bands that just happen to be successful around that same time. Just the context of it always fascinates me. I was made for Lovin You. The ersatz disco equal of Heart of Glass, 2000 Man, a great uninspired remake of the Stones classic, less worldly cynical to such a degree that it's instantly known that all these years of sissy face haven't obliterated their true Queen's rubehood. They're even less debauched than their obvious role model, Alice Cooper. And by the way, since we recently lost Ace Frehley, 2000 Man was, of course, one of the songs that he sang on the album Dynasty. And when I was a kid and I heard that song, it's like the perfect Ace song, because when you hear it, It does sound like something kind of extraterrestrial, space-like. You know, the lyrics and my name is a number on a piece of plastic film. There was just something about it. And so as a little kid, I didn't even know that it wasn't Ace's song, but you hear him singing it, and it was just kind of a perfect song for him. And I actually really liked the way KISS did it. Anyway, Sure Knows Something. Their expertise in the R&R riff department is top drawer. If they were non-multimillionaire Jerkingtons, this would read as uncontestedly great utilitarian mustard. Charisma, their self-referential wit, is just an iota short of that of the masters of the genre, the Dictators. If they were only funny for real, they'd be a gas. And that is, I kind of liked that song. I actually could, it's catchy enough I could still probably sing it right now because just charisma. And I remember that when I was a kid, it's funny thinking about this because all these things happened when we were so young. That was the first time I'd ever even heard that word. And so I hear this, what is my, and you hear this word charisma. And then you kind of have one of your parents explain it to you and then you listen to the lyrics. You go, oh, okay. Anyway, I just remember that was the first time I'd ever heard that song. Still, the waist was thick. The last 4 cuts on side 2 are unadulterated throwaways. Save Your Love, last cut side 2, is so worthless, it would have been the last cut second side of such fiascos as the Knickerbockers or Mindbenders LP Shenanigans of 66. Look, I got to tell you, and a lot of this stuff for all of us is nostalgia, but I got this album probably not long after it came out. I remember going into a Kmart, I think is what it was, with my mom. And whenever she'd take us to Kmart, and I was, whatever it was, 10 years old at the time, I would just hightail it back to the record section and I just start flipping through records. I just loved it. It was so much fun. And I remember seeing this, the cover of Dynasty, and looking at it going, is this new? Is this old? Should I know what this is? I didn't know anything was coming out, and it was a pretty brand new record at that time. And I can't remember if she bought it for me then, but we got it not long after that. And I just played this thing just to death. I loved it. And I still, I Was Made for Lovin You. Yes, it has kind of that disco flavor, but I like it. So I actually really, and again, a lot of this stuff is nostalgia, but I still really, really love this record. Okay, anyway, all in all, however, Dynasty beats General Heck on such overpraised recent releases as Some Girls, Street Legal, and whatever they're called by The Doors, Nick Lowe, and Ricky Lee Jones, all of which, unfortunately, I choose not to ignore. That's actually pretty funny. Anyway, I just thought you'd find this kind of interesting. It's always cool going back and looking at what was being said at the time, because right now, we've got 50 plus years in between some of these things. This one, not quite 50 years, but pretty close. And it's just interesting going back with all that time in between us and seeing what people were saying at the time. They didn't have all this buffer, and knowing what ended up happening after this stuff. I just find this stuff super fascinating. Anyway, please follow the channel if you're not already following the channel. Like the video, share this video with other people, and with that, have yourself a fantastic day.